beautiful friends, it's Amanda here, and today we're talking about this new palette from ColourPop in collaboration with Kathleen Lights. This is the So Jaded palette and it is so big. This palette is currently available. It's priced at $39 US. I waited a little while to do my video until after Kathleen posted her video. I think she should be the one that's out there. You know, I didn't want my opinion to like cloud the air before she got the chance to show her palette. I did watch her video. I haven't watched anybody else's videos. Typically, I don't watch reviews before I do my own review, but hers was more of a reveal than a review. So I feel like we're good to go. Anyway, the first thing that I want to talk about is the size of this palette. A lot of people were kind of turned off by how big it is, and I think it's hard to tell in photos how large this actually is. I know that on my Instagram post, a lot of people were like, I don't know where I would store that. That's huge, you know. It's not that big. I just want to compare it to a Morphe palette. This is one of their 35 pan palettes. So this is the same height as a Morphe palette, but it's not the same width. See what I'm saying? This is smaller than a Morphe palette. I mean, not by much. Not by much, but this is not that big. It's still big though. This is the largest palette that ColourPop has ever released. Up until now, I think 16 was the largest they had done, and this has 30 shades, so she's a big girl, big beautiful girl. A lot of people asked me if the pans in here were smaller than their typical palettes. I think just seeing it in this new format is a little like disorienting. I have noticed that the ColourPop pressed powder palettes do vary just a little bit in the amount of actual product in the pans just from palette to palette. For example, I pulled this little 9-pan palette. This is the brown sugar palette. One of my faves. This one has 1.1 grams of shadow per pan. And the Dream Street palette, which is a 12-pan palette, coincidentally another one of my favorites. That's why those were at the front of the drawer for me, because these are some of my favorite palettes. This one says that it is 0.85 grams per pan. So there's less per pan in Dream Street than brown sugar. The shadows in here fall right in the middle. These are 0.9 grams per pan, except for the Super Shock, which is 1.4 grams, but there's only one Super Shock shadow in here. Overall, these are 0.9 grams per pan. So right in the middle, just, I'd say just about average based on the very limited 10 seconds of research we just did. Science! Even though this is a larger palette, this is their typical heavy-duty cardboard packaging. It does have a magnetic closure on here. I love that sound. I love this packaging. It's really, really beautiful. And I think that the packaging does match pretty well to the shades that are inside. I always love that. I also love this little detail on the back where the shade names are printed on the back of the palette. Instead of being little circles, they have a little gemstone type of shape. Very cute. Overall, love the packaging. It's super pretty. There is no mirror inside. Now, I like a palette with a mirror. However, this is quite a large palette, and mirrors tend to make palettes more expensive and heavier. So I do see why they didn't put a mirror in here. I think it was probably the best bet for the consumer. As I mentioned before, there is one Super Shock shadow in here. It's this one at the very top called Diamond. There are 2 pressed glitters in here. You guys, if you've watched my videos before, you know I just don't like pressed glitters. I am not a fan of pressed glitters in eyeshadow palettes. Yes, they look pretty. They are difficult to remove. They are not eye safe. I don't care what you do. They're not eye safe. You're an adult, do what you want to do, use the glitter glue, but honestly, just not a fan. I'm not happy to see the glitters in here, but there are only 2 of them, so okay. There are 12 true matte shadows in here, then there's one matte with glitter, this one over here called Ametrine, and then there's one kind of like satiny matte. This shade called Jasper has a bit of a sheen to it. And then the remaining 13 shades are shimmers, pretty good balance in here of finishes. Good mix. I like about 50-50, so I am happy to see there's a good mixture of finishes in here. There are a lot of neutral, like staple mattes, but they did do a couple of colorful mattes as well, and those do end up being some of my favorite shades performance-wise in this palette, but we'll get to that. You know I like to save my opinion for the end. So let's go ahead and do some swatches. I am going to do both finger and brush swatches of all 30 shades in here. The only exception being I don't brush swatch the glitters. Those are just going to be finger swatched, but otherwise all the swatches will be done on the inside of my arm with no primer, no glitter glue, none of that jazz, just the shadows straight onto my skin. The finger swatches will be on top, and then each corresponding brush swatch will be below. For all of the brush swatches that I ever do, I will be using my e.l.f. flat eyeshadow brush, and I'll clean my brush off in between each shade using my Vermona color switch to prevent any shadow transfer between swatches. So let's go ahead and look at those swatches now. I did really want to quickly point out to you that aside from the 2 pressed glitters in here, there are 2 other shades in the palette that are marked as not eye safe or not intended for use in the eye area. That's this red shade here that you're seeing called Ruby, as well as the very last shade in the palette called Sapphire. Both of those have an eye safety warning, likely for the pigments that were used. They tend to cause staining. Some people can be allergic to those, so please do a patch test on the inside of your arm. Apply those shadows, see how they do, see if they cause any sort of reaction for you. That's always what I recommend for the pigment shades that are not eye safe, because they can work for some people, unlike the glitters. Definitely do a little patch test for those shades in particular, just to make sure that everything's going to be all good for you. I haven't had any issues with them at all, but everybody's different, so just keep yourself safe. Now that you've seen all the swatches, let's jump into a quick eyeshadow tutorial using this So Jaded palette, and then I'll wrap up all my thoughts at the end. I'm starting off by priming my eyes with my favorite eye base. It's my MAC Paint Pot in the shade Painterly. Then I just set that primer using this pale matte shade called My Precious. This is a great setting shade for me, and I have a nice smooth surface to work on. Then I went in with Rose Quartz. This is like a warm medium tan matte, and I started building that into the crease area. I did layer this up just a little bit and focused in the center of my crease area. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of color to my transition shade. So I'm using Ametrine on the exact same brush and just layering that on top, just a little bit lower down than that Rose Quartz shade. I am going to be putting a lot of mattes on the eyes, so I want to really build up a good transition. Next, I'm taking Garnet. This is a matte, like brick red, and on a flat brush, I'm packing that onto my lid, starting in the center and working my way out so that I have a nice solid color from my lashes all the way up to my crease. Then taking the shade Jasper on the small fluffy detail brush and just filling in the outer part of my lid there for a little depth. I went back in with Ametrine to blend everything together, give a little smoothness there in the crease area, and I also added that along my lower lash line to bring some balance to that lower part of the eye. Next, this is my favorite part. I'm taking the shade Fluorite and just using my finger, I'm patting that right on top of those reds so that I get a really pretty, like, shifty purple iridescence. Then I took Moonstone and using my pinky finger, I applied that right to the inner corner of the eye and really made that highlight area pop. Curled my lashes and added some of my L'Oreal Lash Paradise mascara. That finishes off this look. This is such a perfect fall look for me. I love how it's simple and yet it's complicated at the same time with the layering of the shadows, but this is super easy to achieve. This palette definitely inspired me to pull together some fun color combos. I'm going to show you another close-up because I can't stop looking at this eyeshadow. I just really love the way this look turned out. Okay, now you've seen all the swatches, you've seen the tutorial, how it looks on the eyes. Personally, I really like how this look turned out. I keep like looking at my eyeshadow from different angles in the mirror. That subtle iridescence paired with like a really fall berry, almost smoky type of look is just very exciting to me. I really like the combination of those two elements. So I definitely really like how my look turned out. I would love to do some more looks with this palette. If you guys are interested, let me know and maybe we can do like a palette bingo or a 3 looks 1 palette or something like that. Performance wise, I was really impressed with these shadows, particularly some of these colorful mattes. Those kind of shades tend to be pretty hard to formulate. They just are usually very dry and kind of patchy and not easy to blend out. And I was really impressed with some of the colorful mattes in here, particularly when I was swatching Sapphire, Turquoise, Citrine. These kind of matte shades usually aren't very smooth when applied with a brush. I think they've done a really good job formulating the shades in here. They're nice and opaque, nice and even. The main one that I was just kind of meh about was this Super Shock shadow shade, Diamond. I really wanted that to be like a intense, really metallic Super Shock shadow. That's what I love about Super Shocks, is how bright and metallic they are. I felt like with the shades Moonstone and Pearl, this Diamond like topper Super Shock type of shade wasn't really adding much to the palette for me. You already know I hate pressed glitters. There's 2 in here. I'm glad that it's not more, but I am done seeing pressed glitters in palettes. I just want them to go away. No offense. No offense. One criticism of this palette that I've seen going around online is that there's no definitive color story. Kathleen touched on that a bit in her video, and I don't mind this like half neutral, half colorful thing that's going on in here. I actually really like it because this is going to be a one-stop shop type of palette. You're going to be able to get every single look. If you want like a quick 2 shadow, you know, get ready for school in 5 minutes type of look. If you want a really bold, crazy, colorful look, you could do a rainbow look. You can do a smoky eye, a date night, a bridal. You can get everything in this palette, and that's because there is everything in this palette. So, you know, fair enough, there's not a cohesive color scheme, but I actually don't mind that at all about this palette. This is like the antithesis of the monochromatic palettes. The monochrome palettes have been really small, those little 9 pans, and they've been very, you know, one note tone wise. This is the exact opposite. This is like eyeshadow explosion, and I kind of love it. I like the monochromatic palettes too. I think I just appreciate the 2 different types of designs just for what they are. I do think this is a palette for somebody that doesn't necessarily have a lot of palettes, even though that doesn't apply to me at all, and I still quite like this palette. What it boils down to is personal preference. If you don't like big palettes, or if you prefer something that's a little more curated, a little more like color story focused, then this probably isn't the palette for you. I do like those types of palettes, small curated palettes, but I also like this. I like just opening up a palette and not knowing what I'm gonna do and just grabbing some shadows and running with it. I can see how this is overwhelming for some people. I feel pretty inspired by this palette. I do like Kathleen. I watch her channel and I am a fan of hers, but I try not to let my feelings towards a collaborator really affect how I feel about the products that they produce. With that being said, I do have her other ColourPop palettes, Dream Street of course, and also the Zodiac palette. I would put this one in between those 2. Dream Street remains my favorite, so I don't like this more than Dream Street, but I do like it more than the Zodiac palette. That one just didn't really inspire me very much color-wise, so that's just my take on it. That's just my opinion on it. I do want to do comparisons with this palette. This palette is big, it is massive. So I am going to do some comparisons over on my Instagram stories. I will let you guys submit the requests for which comparisons you want to see. So you can just go over to that Instagram story whenever it pops up. I'll try to get to it as quickly as possible. I do need to dedicate a couple hours of my day to doing those swatches. So if you want to see what Ametrine looks like compared to the single shadow Pretty Cruel, then you just go to my stories and submit that comparison request, and then I will swatch as many of those as I possibly can. If you're seeing this much later, I will save all of the swatch comparisons that I do in a story highlight so you can go back and reference those at any time. Don't worry if you're not signed up for Instagram, you can still see all of those on your desktop or your laptop. Just go and check out the link for my Instagram. You will be able to view that without going through the phone app. Whew, okay, is that everything? Did I get to everything? So my overall thoughts are, I do like it. I'm not super duper obsessed with it, but I like it. I like it more than I thought I would. When I first saw this palette, I was like, oh no, it's so big, it has glitter, I'm not gonna like it. But I do like it. I do like it. It's grown on me as I've swatched it, as I've used it and photographed it. Especially if you're a Kathleen fan, you know, definitely go for it. Congrats to Kathleen. Another beautiful collaboration. A lot of people are over ColourPop releases. They're over ColourPop collabs. I am not over either one of those, so keep them coming because I am here for it all day, every day. Now's the time when I want to hear what you guys think about this palette. Are you interested in all these tons of colors? Is this too big for you? I always love to hear what you guys think about things too. So leave a comment down below, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye. Huh? How did I mess up the same intro I've done literally almost 600 times? It's fine. Ma'am, probably should have figured this out before, but I didn't, so here we are. Cool, you're awesome at this. Self-deprecating pep talks. It's what we're all about here. Where is my swatch brush? If I had merch, I swear it would say, where's my swatch brush on it? Because that's what I say the most. Here it is. As usual, just right in front of my face. Using this So Jaded. Killing it. Fall, smoky. What are you talking about? What direction are you going with this? Huh? It's collaborators. Corroborate. She's a professional. Huh? What is she talking about? Do you know? I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. Why did I say that? Why did I say that? What? I messed up my intro and now I messed up my outro. Who am I? What am I doing here? What even is this? Did I do creepy eyebrows? Was I like, bye? Bye. In a perfect world. Wow. Believe it or not, I only had one coffee today too, so this is just the natural weird coming out. You're welcome. Okay, that's quite enough. All right, bye.